Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday, November 17, 2021, and you're watching me, Nikki, also known as Business Trader, for the Awesome 10X Philippine Market Update. Let's begin. Let's go through the Philippines. Your Philippine index is now trading at 7,350. You could see that the market is still very high, very topish, and you could see that the volumes are also 7 billion pesos. Still there, but a lot of distribution, a lot of profit taking going on. So let's take a look at the index movers for the day. Okay, so index movers, let's just go through it one by one. BDO is trading at 130, Ayala Corp is 900 pesos, Metro Bank is 51.7, Meralco is 302.6, Wilcon is 29.45, JG Summit 61, San Miguel Corporation 118, Mega World 338, URC 133, Aboitiz Power 31.7, Luciatan Group 10.3, Jollibee 245.8, GT Cap is now trading 600 pesos, MPI 407, Globe 3468, Security Bank 122, Pure Gold 42, AGI 11 bucks, BPI 91, Robinson's Land 19.38, Aboitiz Equity Ventures 51, Robinson's Retail 65.9, ICT 195, Ascent 12, Bloom 730, Ayala 36, Converge 34, PLDT 1700, SM Prime 36, SM 97.5. Could see that the market ranges are actually near the top end of the resistances. And even if you take a look at stats, no, most of the most of the top traded names are barely moving with the ranges or the percentage changes are within about 5%, no, 2 to 5%. Mondenisen, although it's going up 18.12, we see some resistance here at about 18, 19, 20. So some people might actually be profit taking on these levels. Ascent 12, yes, 12 can go 12.50, can go 11.50. The volatility seems to be already muted here at about 12 pesos. SGP, this is the Synergy Grid IPO. From 12 pesos, it's now rallied to as high as 16 pesos. So you've got some people profit taking after a 20-30% blistering IPO move or FOO move, follow-on offering. Dito Telecom is still down after the dilution efforts and so many questions. So Dito is still down. Lounge Trend 5.6. Other than that, your telecoms are still very strong. Converge is 34, PLDT 1700. Your Globe is trading at 3,500. So those three telecoms are still very strong, and we expect that to always get bought on dips. URC is 133. This may be related to inflationary concerns, although you could see that Modenisen, after dropping to 15, rallied back to 18. And my assumption is that URC is no different. Here, about 130 pesos, you will have inflationary pressures from commodities, and because it is a manufacturer, that would have an impact on them. However, it will still trade within a range. From 130 pesos, I think it's going to trade about 140 or 150 over time. Like, let's say, let's give it about 6 months or 3 months, it could rally up. GMA7 is trading at about 14 pesos. I wouldn't want to bet on media related names even upon elections. So but it's 14 bucks. ICT is trading at 195, shipping related. I am also it's more on the importing of a lot, no. So you've got a lot of world trade, import, export. It's rallied a lot. I wouldn't know how to value ICT, so I'll just leave it at that, 195. BDO trading at 130. For banks, we do know that it's always been a bellwether for the economy. If the world believes that consumers are gonna spend, consumers will use their credit cards, consumer will borrow, and businesses will flourish eventually, then the financials are the heart of the society. And BDO at 129, 125, I think there's a lot of buyers there. The problem with BDO is that obviously it's gonna be stuck in a range. Think that the range is 120 to about 140. That would be it for about 3 months or 6 months. For Semirara, you've got coal, SCC and DMC. They were sold down because there was China price curbs like a few weeks ago. And I think that hit the prices as well of Semirara and DMC. That said, you would have these buyers every now and then. Obviously, DMC at 7 has buyers. Therefore, Semirara also has buyers when it always goes down to about 20. But at the very least, it's a trading range. I don't think that these are momentum names. We don't have a huge reversal. But it is an energy related play, because at the end of the day, the Philippines need energy, whether we're sourcing it from coal or solar. And let's face it, majority of the Philippines is still 80 to 90% dependent on coal. Therefore, DMC and Semirara are still a viable trading instrument for anyone who's not looking for a secular play, but more like a cyclical energy demand play. So I think it's more of that. Same thing because energy related demand. I'd argue that Petron trading about 3.5, 3.6. There are people who are accumulating that even if it falls below 350, simply because energy related demand is needed in the country, whether it be for mobility, transportation, airlines. Fuel is needed. You don't have any other choice. It's not as if the Philippines is 99% dependent on solar. We aren't there yet. Okay, so you really have a lot of electricity generating sources in the Philippines. So you've got ASEN, you've got FGen, you've got Aboitiz Power, and you can see Aboitiz Power is strong here, about 31.30. It's getting bought now, close at 31.7. Amongst the index names, no, I'd argue that, or the top traded names, Aboitiz Power is still one of those names that I think will always get a bid. AP, whether it's AP or AEV. As for the infrastructure related names in the Philippines, I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. So I don't have much to say about the San Miguel's or the MPIs. It's infrastructure related. Uh, yeah. Your IPOs will come out this week for the Keeper Holdings. So I think on majority of the people are gonna be watching on that, on the upcoming Keepers Holdings. All day is still strong here, about 80 cents. So you've got it's a huge range, right? From 60 cents IPO to about a peso. Okay, so yeah, there's not much news. A lot of the Philippine news is related to um a lot of elections, latest stories. But let's not dig into politics. But that's the headlines, no? I can see these headlines from Inquirer. Palace confirms Duterte meeting with lawmakers. Bongbong and Sara Duterte alliance for 2022. COVID booster shots may only be given 6 months after two-dose vaccines. 3.5 million COVID-19 vaccines arrive in the Philippines. The beautiful thing about the Philippines now is that yes, it seems as if the Philippines, of course, we've lowered down, no, from level 3 to level 2, so loosen things up. So there's more leeway for positivity on or optimism on retail sales to recover. Yun. Yun. Let's take a look at some questions, if ever. Comments. Okay, thoughts po on GSMI. Good divs, low PE ratio relative to peers, but very illiquid. I think in the Philippines, to be honest, you have to consider liquidity first versus fundamentals. So liquidity means your ability to buy and sell that instrument and the ability for others to buy and sell that instrument as well. Since the Philippines is a very illiquid country, you could see that the total volume traded, value traded of the index is simply 6.9 billion. This is comparatively a very low amount. And take a look at the stats here. Your top traded names are what? 60 million to about a billion pesos. Once it is below 10 million pesos, in my view, the value traded on every average day, you will never have ability to get valued correctly. So illiquidity is a detriment. You can see the total value trade is just a million pesos. So, I wouldn't argue, I wouldn't even touch the fundamentals, or, I wouldn't even discuss the company if the liquidity is too little. So, when it's illiquid, I don't think there's a lot of people interested with it. So, yun. Unfortunately, I really don't look at companies that are low liquidity. IMI. Okay, IMI is semiconductors. When it comes to semiconductors, we've always said that we prefer the US semiconductors. You've got NVIDIA, you've got AMD, you've got all these great companies. When it comes to cars like Qualcomm is also right now, just last night, the Qualcomm Snapdragon just partnered with BMW. So I don't think that Philippine Semiconductor IMI, although it's German, that's a German company, I don't think they have a lot of scalability to give a better pricing worldwide. So I would rather not invest in any semiconductor company in the Philippines. Unfortunately, no matter if IMI talks about automakers, industrials, I think that I'd rather not. So maybe I don't know much, but I'd rather not. Thoughts on Ayala Land and Robinson's Land? Is it a good hold for 3.5 years? I think properties in general, it's very difficult to say a 3-year format or a 5-year format. But Okay, Ayala Land, as we all know, has thousands of hectares. So does RLC have. So it's really a bet on whether this land will appreciate. Obviously, most people believe that the Philippine economy will grow, and therefore there will be need for these developments of these land to be turned into residential or warehouses for Ayala. So I'd say that between the two, um, compare them from a developer standpoint, both of them have the budget to develop, but they will also produce the residential demand if there is demand. So it's really dependent on how affordable these products will be for Filipinos. Um, can people pay for them? I think that's a question. Can Filipinos pay? Can OFWs pay? Are we beholden to foreigners buying up all these property projects? Yeah, I don't know. So it's questionable to me on how huge the growth is property standpoint. I guess I don't know much. I'll just answer from my perspective. I don't know what's going to happen for the next 3.5 years. For properties, the only thing that I hear real estate agents say, or let's say Colliers or the Jones Lang LaSalle or the Lee Chus of the world, they usually say that when it comes to properties, it's always location based. So obviously, they like Pampanga, they like Clark, they like Iloilo. Actually, they even say it's provincial, right? So amongst the provinces, they always say that Mega World is a better hold for an investment territory. So it's more on the outskirts of Manila. So yun, I think it's a location play. I don't know much. But of course, between all of them, number one pa rin si Ayala. Thoughts and ASEX. ACEX, I know nothing much. ACEX, I know nothing eh. Hindi ko, sorry, I don't read through it. I have nothing to say about it. SPNEC IPO, what can you say? Thanks for the question. Let me get back to you next week. I'm generally positive with solar, but my question is, how much is the adoption? Basahin ko muna. I haven't really read through it. Solar Philippines is looking to capitalize on the demand for renewable energy, yes. They are developing a 500 megawatt solar plant in Las Piñas and in Nueva Ecija. They will be raising how much? Let's see. It's larger than any solar power plant. Um, Constructing 275 to 500 megawatts, seeking an IPO. They're looking to sell 2.7 billion pesos. Um, Sabi nga niya, I didn't have any time to dig in. Yeah. So, yeah, I will have to read through, but guys, kasi right now we all know there is hype. Climate Change Summit, COP26, everyone's going carbon neutral. So the majority of investors, if you ask me, from the local to the global, everyone's bullish when it comes to solar energy because they know that this is the future. However, a big if. Number one, amongst that 2.7 billion pesos, how fast is the ROI on these solar plants? Is it going to take 5 years? Is it going to go 7 years? You have to take into consideration all the tariff rates. Has it been approved? Syempre, they're obviously ganun yan. They're building a power plant. Sorry, hindi power plant. This is a solar plant. So solar panel, solar farms. Meron yan ROI. So meron yan return on investment. So I think what's going to happen here is you are funding essentially a solar power plant that would produce electricity for the entire Nueva Ecija. So para ka nag-avoid this power din. Parang ganun. That's how I see it. Is it risky? It depends on the execution. Kasi hindi ko alam kung sino si Solar Philippines versus example na Boitis Power na may track record, di ba? Yun lang. Yun yung mga questions lang in my mind. The first question in my mind. How huge? Kasi it's not about the money involved here eh. How fast do they execute the solar farm? Baguhan ba yan? Kasi at the end of the day, the reason why people poured billions of pesos to ASEN is because hindi yan baguhan. They can trust the management when they say are gonna build 10 billion peso solar farm in Vietnam, in the Philippines, wind farms. Pati government of Singapore, sige game, bayaran kita, ilan kailangan mo? Billions of pesos, check, 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 bang, bigay. So, ang question dito sa Solar Philippines, ano yung capability nila? I think that's the question. Yun yung first question ko. Management experience sa solar farms, I don't know much about the ability lang. So, yun yung mga questions for that. Pero kung solar secular trend, oo naman, marunong sila mag-hype. May secular trend talaga ang solar. With the liquor, no, AGI, Lushotan Group. Okay, I would rather go for watching the Keepers Holdings first before looking at these names. So, dun muna tayo sa galaw ng Keepers Holdings this week or next week. Let's see. Will Converge go back to their 52-week highs? I personally think that when Converge fell, that it was a necessity in the Philippine infrastructure. Therefore, there's always going to be a buyer. But I would never know how high it will go. So, if the question is, can it go 45 within the month or within next year? I really don't know if it's going to hit 52-week highs next year. However, there will always be demand. Kasi telecoms, as long as they continue to give that broadband connectivity, we are, of course, a digital-first country. Not just our country, but really worldwide. We're going to go to a digital transformation. We definitely need these three, Converge, PLDT, and Globe. But obviously, the market has higher hopes for Converge, kaya mataas din yung valuation premium ng Converge. Pinakamura sa kanilang tatlo, PLDT. Pinakamahal si Converge. Si GCash nasa mura and mahal. Mura dahil malakas yung growth, tapos may GCash upside, di ba? And a lot is being priced into the GCash upside on the Globe. So I think safer si PLDT and Globe on dips. Pero there will always be a buyer on Converge. I think dito, the question is, yun nga, dilution. So, downtrend, the market knows something that we don't. So, wag nyo na lang i-touch. SGP is unique company, but it has a lot of questions as well in my mind. 12 to 16, hanggang saan yan pupunta? I don't know. Kasi like even a monopoly, nagtataka ako sa profit mechanism yan eh. So we'll see. Maybe look at the quarters reports. What do you mean? Papasok ka ba dito sa broadband market? Marami-rami na kasi sila posti dito. I think dito Telecom wants to be, of course, in the broadband market. Yan naman talaga ang definite reason kaya may third telco, may fourth telco. And there is a need, di ba? The Filipinos have a need. I think the biggest question nandito, telecoms, is will they raise money and funding? Kasi guys, mahirap ang mga telecoms eh. They always have to keep on spending and spending and spending. Lahat yan. Infrastructure, telecommunications. I think like PLDT spends something within the realm of 30 to 40 billion pesos for the broadband. So yun. Saan kukuha ng 30 to 40 billion pesos si dito? May pera ba siya? Enough ba yun? Where do you see Jollibee over the next few months? I think it's just a reopening play. Pag nagkalabasan ng earnings, mahihirapan. So medyo I would be scared to pay a premium despite the fact that obviously restaurant, reopening, fast food, lahat ng mobility, transportation, traffic na. Hindi ako masyado confident to pay a premium. Yun lang. I'm slightly bullish on the Keeper IPO. You can check out the company explanation we have for Keeper IPO. It's also in the Awesome 10X website. Just go to our YouTube. Type mo lang Awesome 10X Keeper Holdings, lalabas yan. Yun. For the banks, I think let's talk about the resistances. Metrobank has resistance at 55 to 60. But at 50 below, there's a lot of buyers, I think. AGI, I obviously think that there is value here. But at the same time, it's always lagged behind. Why is it a laggard? I don't know too. AGI owns Emperador. AGI owns very good businesses naman. Mega World and Emperador most of the time. So, may value, I think, between AGI and Lushotan Group. I think mas may value si AGI. Pero hindi ko rin alam kung bakit laggard siya. Hindi ko alam kung anong reason for the lag of AGI. Is it because the market sees it slow growth? Hindi ko rin sure eh. Kasi ang lakas naman ng emperador growth. Or maybe because people believe that, I don't know, what do people believe upon on AGI? Hindi ko rin alam yung bear thesis. Actually, I'm bullish on AGI. Since 5 and 6, and even at 10, 11, I think it's cheap. I agree with Lucio Koski per Holdings, since nandun yung sa spotlight, yun yung magiging usapan. It's gonna be about liquor industry. And baka matamaan ng konting halo effect either si Emperor or si AGI because of Keepers Holdings. Could be. So yun. I was not a believer of Squid Pay, to be honest. When FA was rising, ang nasa loob ko is, ba't pa ako mag-Squid Pay? Gcash na lang. So, hindi talaga ako ever naniwala. And when it comes to Fintech, I still believe that there's so much competition, by the way. Number 1 being Gcash, number 2 being Paymaya, and then number 3 would be either, actually pwede ngang number 2, 3 si C-Money, si GrabPay. I think GrabPay is a bigger play. Pwede nga talunin ni GrabPay si GCash kung natutulog si GCash tomorrow eh. You know what? GrabPay, it has so much money. C-Money, Shopee, aka Shopee, they have so much money. Sabagay, GCash just got $2 billion valuation, so may pera din yan. Kung usapang fintech, sino si FA against them? Yun na lang. I mean, I'm not trying to downplay si FA. It's just that, sorry, kalaban mo big guns eh. Ang hirap, David against Goliath na labanan. Doon tayo sa Goliath. Thoughts on REITs. Bakit ang laki ng volume? Well, I think REITs are a substitute of most people against bonds. So whether it be the Philinvest REIT, whether it be the Ayala REIT, Mega World REITs, Robinson's REITs, actually, all the REITs naman, I was always telling the people who asked me, yes, you can subscribe because you have the yield, you have that tenant demands, kung talagang naniniwala ka naman sa Ayala, sa Mega World, sa mga Philinvest, you do have that, Robinsons. But ako personally, I don't see tremendous upside. So when it's going up, like ngayon, $18 na yung 18 pesos na yung Mega World REIT, 7.7 na yung Philinvest. In some ways, I tell people, how much upside do you really see? Kasi ako, happy na ako sa 10 to 20%. Even if it exceeds more than that, no problem na. Kasi actually, 10 to 20%, happy na talaga dyan eh. Is it good to buy APL at the current price? I don't know much about APL. Unfortunately, I know nothing. I can't say anything for something I don't know about. Okay, so yun. For the Philippines, I would still say, like just last week, no, we said that if you believe in restaurant reopening, it seems as if instead of Jollibee, it seems like DNL has a play for that. Makaka 9 or 10 siguro to. And then if you're really believing in reopening, then you could check out, although I would argue, syempre, walang profit si Cebu Pacific coming from so many losses yung airlines. But then again, perhaps kapag bad earnings yan, it is a buy on dips. I usually would wait for earnings disclosures and I would argue na sigurado patay earnings niyang SEB. Pero recovery play. So kung masama yung earnings tapos ginap down siya, that's when I'll buy SEB. If it's 46 or 45 or let's say sobrang massive loss. Sasabihin niya, I lost 7-8 billion pesos last year. O parang sinasabi ni Petron, sabi ni San Miguel, I lost 10 billion. For me kasi, it's not about the losses that you've incurred this year eh. It's about the fact that I think next year, narrow loss ka. Kung 10 billion loss si Cebu Pacific, okay, siguro next year, 5 billion peso loss ka na lang. If 10 billion loss si Petron, I would argue siguro next year, 5 billion loss ka na lang. Kalahatiin natin yung loss mo. I'm not even arguing profit there. The fact na manaro mo yung loss mo would already be exclamation marks for the Philippine market. So if you'll ask me, guys, my bets would be buy Cebu Pacific on dips, buy Petron on dips, kahit na nag-dip yan. Kasi to me, it's not important in the market what money you lost last year. That's in the past. It's all about 2 years from now, 3 years from now. And this is what I believe upon. Everyone's gonna travel, and they could be traveling via airplanes or via cars. Therefore, there is demand for what? Petron or Shell, basically, which is your gas stations in the Philippines. And then you'll also believe na may demand talaga sa airlines, even if loss. Okay? Even if losses yan. In fact, pag nag-report ng bad loss, la 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 la, that's the time for me to buy Petron and SEB. Hindi ako masyado naniniwala kasi about the valuations to, kasi for me when all day went out, 60 cents, sabi ko, hindi siya mura, hindi siya mahal, fair siya. Now, 60 to 80 cents, pwede siyang magkaroon ng resistance talaga kasi at 90 cents, 50% up eh. Guys, I mean realistically from a supermarket standpoint, no matter how much expansion Villar will do, no matter how synergistic their e-commerce, maganda yung warehousing nila, ask yourself this, talaga bang mura versus the peers? Syempre, you have to compare all day against Pure Gold, against the supermarket man lang ng SM. And if you believe na, a supermarket business can only grow perhaps 10, 20%, happy na ako. But it already rose 40, 50%. Alam nga naman mag to the moon ka. Hindi ka naman innovational. I mean, how much innovation can you do as a supermarket? Let's be honest. E-commerce retail cannot innovate too much. So yun lang. For me, parang I would be surprised kung super lakas ng growth. Kasi parang I see no difference and may competition ka. It's not as if like, sa tingin mo ba, a person who is already shopping in Pure Gold or supermarket sa SNR will just suddenly shift to all day? Location-based kasi to, guys. Location-based yan. And nasa-saturate din yung location. Hindi yan gaano kalaki. Look at this, household spending in the entire industry. So, ako pa rin, naniniwala ko sa Philippines, parang number 1 naman pa rin Pure Gold. Siguro fast growth yan, si All Day, for the outskirts, no? Kasi outskirts yan sa mga Cavite, sa mga land properties ni Villar. But I don't see like tremendous boom, 100%, 200%. Sakto lang. If it drops, there's always a buyer. I take 70 cents na protektahan naman. But should it go 150, 2 peso? Yun ang hirap sabihin. Di ko masabi, guys. So, ganun yung view ko sa retail. A retail business is a retail business. Huwag natin isipin na, wow, retail, pero mag-100% up. Saan ka naman nakahanap ng ganung business? Kahit saan sigurong business, parang mag-crypto-cryptuhan ka kung 100% ang hanap mo or 10x yung hanap mo. Wala yan sa mga all day. Yun. So, sa SGP, ano yan? SGP, yes, monopoly, but at the same time, after a 12 to 16 move, hindi ko rin sure how high it can go. So, hindi ako sobrang bullish. I mean, sa IPO, tapos na. Plus, ang daming politika kapag, of course, monopoly yan ng government, di ba? It's a monopolistic business. So, I don't know. Hintayin na lang natin, but I would avoid. Hindi talaga ako mahilig, guys, sa mga, I like monopolies, but I don't like businesses with a lot of political regulation, and electricity is a regulated environment. Yun din. Actually, if you wonder, people are saying, sobrang mura ng Mrs. G compared to all-day IPO. Yun nga So parang for me, kung usapang retail, dami-dami ninyo, competition yan. May Gaisano, may Robinsons, may SM, may Pure Gold, may All Day, may Mary Mart. Although si Mary Mart, ang konti-konti lang naman ang number of stores, di ba? So, usapan dyan is, after a quick flip, I've always felt, sinabi ko naman, I think All Day, you can buy it 70-30 siguro, 70% chance aangat, umangat nga, 30% siguro hindi, mag-flat lang. Since umangat na siya, ano pang hinihintay nyo? Di mag-take profit. And then, kung mag-akyat-akyat yan, di good, dahil at least kumita, di ba? But, yun, hindi ko masabi kung super good long term. Kasi I think it's more of a speculative growth play rather than a blue chip solid keeper. Keep. Yun. Yeah, minsan pag sa hype talaga malakas yung galaw. Hindi ko alam kung gaano kalakas yung hype sa All Day. Hindi ko naman sinasabi na babagsak, no? Sinasabi ko lang na kung usapan valuation, siguro happy na. Pero kung dumire-diretso pa, edi grabe na. Parang ganun lang. Hindi ko sinabing babagsak. Sinasabi ko lang, syempre supermarket, 'di ba? Hanggang saan ba ang supermarket? Yun lang. Supermarket pa rin yung binili nyo. Okay, bye-bye guys. Thank you. See you again. Tomorrow, usap tayong crypto market. Then Friday, usap tayo global markets. Thank you.